it's quite possible that at some point in the future, you're going to need to have a fire, but you're going to need it at a time when you don't want to be discovered as far as your location. If that happens to you, you will be very thankful to know just how to dig a Dakota fire hole. So stay with us in the next few minutes as I show you just how easy it is if you find yourself out in the wilderness and you need to make one for yourself. Don't go away. Besides all of the ways to make fire, there are actually quite a different number of types of fire that it's good to know how to make. And today I want us all to learn the Dakota Fire Hole or Dakota Fire Pit. Now, I will warn you on the front end, it is pretty labor intensive to get started, but then it has so many pros to knowing how to make this fire. You will be very thankful that really the only con is just that it's a lot of sweat on the front end. Once you've got it there, it's going to be fantastic. Let me tell you some of the ways that I love this fire. First of all, it's fantastic if it's a windy day. If we have gale force winds, it's not even going to affect this fire. That's pretty important. Also, if I am in a rainy environment where everything is wet and soaked, look around closely and find a place. So don't just do this in haste, but find a place where you're going to have non-stony ground and not on a path where you're going to be walking a lot, because one of the other benefits of this fire is that it's completely covert. And once I make just 8 or 10 paces away from the fire and look back, you won't even know that your fire is there because it will not go above the ground level. That's fantastic if you need it to be that way, but that's another reason why you wouldn't want it in the middle of where people might walk and fall into it. So keep that in mind. So find a place that is relatively good ground. Some folks, if they know that they're not going to have any dry wood to work with at all, if they know that they only have wet wood, then they go ahead and recognize that yes, even though this is supposed to be completely smokeless in its perfect form, if you're in a very wet environment with only wet wood, you are going to have a bit of smoke. And so in that case, you'll want to try to build this kind of next to the base of a young tree, not an old dry tree that could catch fire, but a very young tree, because any smoke that does come is going to travel up that tree. And that's a really good tip to keep in mind. Also, if you don't have that at your disposal, another way to kind of filter that smoke that might come up from wet wood would be if you can find a bush about like this one that's right above me with a lot of small leaves or leaves and berries that are living, not dead. Those are going to kind of act as just a nice gentle filter, so as any smoke that does come from this rises, it doesn't get very far up into the sky to be a signal that anyone would notice from a distance. If you're a total survivalist or into bushcraft, you probably have done better than I have done. I've just brought an old wool blanket that I don't mind getting dirty, but if you have a tarp or a poncho that you've brought with you, that's going to come in handy. For me, I'm going to put this under my knees to make it easier as I kneel and dig, but a lot of folks like to spread out a small tarp where they can actually put the dirt onto the tarp as they dig, and that makes it easy for them later to fill back in the hole. So I'll do that right now, get this under my knees, and then I want to show you a couple of digging tools, all right? I'm going to show you the nice version down to the small version. This is one of those wonderful little backpack trowels that you can do a number of things with. As it comes out, you can actually use the serrated edge to almost act as a little bit of a saw or an axe if you need it to. But this is going to be almost a military grade trowel for digging that's going to come in very handy. And you saw how it folded up so compactly to be in my backpack, although it is a little bit heavier because it's so quality. Now, I got this at a little store just this week, and it is not made in the country of my origin here in the USA, and it's not very high quality, but it is small and it is light, and it's kind of a littler version of that. And it also is going to be handy. So if you have something like this, you'll probably get by in a pinch. Just don't have high expectations if there's any plastic on it at all, because even though it has nice sawing edges or a bottle cap opener on the edge, I can just about guarantee that once this hits rock, it's going to get pretty flimsy and may even render itself useless at that point. But I do like that it comes with almost a little pick on the side of it that you could pick into difficult areas, and this tightens up to make it into like a little pickaxe, like a gold miner would use. Or, of course, I can loosen it up and make it into just a digging trowel like you saw this bigger version. Okay? I wanted you to just see those so you know the difference in quality. And they all, I didn't show you, but almost all of them come with some sort of a little packet that is easy to go in your backpack. This is an even smaller version. You can get it at Walmart. You've probably seen this before. Yes, it could go on your belt or in your backpack. And it's an even smaller little trowel that just clips up with a tight little grip right into there. Very small. It shows the country of origin on the back, and probably would be good for 1 or 2 uses before it's not usable anymore. But it is small and light, and in a pinch, boy, you would make it work. Now, if you also have a really large knife like a K-bar or something, you can even use that as a digging tool, or a small axe, hatchet, something like that. You could use that. So, I've seen people use even a good stick, which is so labor intensive. I don't wish that on anyone, but when you have to make it work, you do. So get whatever you can afford and use, and I'm gonna start digging right now and see how quickly we can get a nice roaring fire going. What you're going to attempt to do next is dig 2 holes. And the first one you're digging as relatively small, especially if you're by yourself, a relatively small cylindrical shaft down into the ground, 12 to 16 inches deep, okay? I know that's gonna feel deep. Once you start digging, you're gonna work up a sweat really quickly, even in good ground. But 12 to 16 inches deep, straight down, and as narrow as possible. I would say a good 6 or 8 inches around is going to be fine. If you do have a large crowd of people that happen to be with you, you can make this really large, but then you have to also dig down quite a bit deeper. So we're just building for 1 or 2 folks right now. And once we have that shaft, we're going to dig another shaft at about a 45-degree angle, starting, a foot or a foot and a half over from that, and dig it down so that the base of it reaches the base of the original hole that you dug down about 16 inches. Now, there are some hardcore bushcrafters out there who would tell you you could dig one of these in 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm gonna say that is absolutely too ambitious. For someone like me, and I'm not a wimp, but I'll tell you what, this is hard work, and I would budget yourself at least 30 minutes to build this. What you're gonna aim for is building 2 cylindrical holes like you see I've got here. We've got it fully finished now, and this hole, if you did dig it straight down, this second hole, go ahead and then just fill it in with your hand until you've got it at a nice 45-degree angle, so that it has a hole that reaches all the way into the other main chamber. At the very bottom is where you want them to connect. You just want to try to preserve this little bridge between them without letting it get compromised, because it cannot collapse or it kind of ruins the whole thing. As you see, I've got green limbs. Now, the greener the better. You want green in the bottom because they won't burn, and they'll let that air vent come through from the other side. So you see the air will come through at the bottom, and they'll kind of act as a little grate so the air can filter up through the fire that we'll build on top of these green limbs that we'll put in the very bottom. So once I have the green limbs in, I'm going to go ahead and start with my little tinder bundle here with a Vaseline cotton ball and putting it with just a little bit of hemp, and that does a great job of catching that ember. The ferro rod does a great job on these, even in a stormy, windy day. So that's why I kind of like to use it rather than matches for something like this. The drier the wood you can find, the better. And you can see I'm putting it in here, but it has been raining today and we are fighting the rains. So you're gonna see smoke when normally this does not end up being a very smoky fire at all. So keep this in mind, just these three things. You don't want green wood in the main part of your fire, and you don't want wet wood in the main part of your fire, and you don't want wood that is very high in sap content or pitch, like pine that might be very resinous, like fat wood. If you put that in here, it's going to burn great, which might be in your favor, but it will cause smoke. We have wet wood here today, so it is causing some smoke, but that's all right. It's still making a great fire. The air is coming in through the side, and if the wind doesn't blow it in on its own, you can always get your head right down there and blow some good air through that secondary hole and gets that fire going really well. Once you've got a good fire going, you've got options now. You can actually build up the side of this main chamber with about 4 big clods of dirt around the edges. Better yet though, if you've got stones like I've found here, I've found 4 good rocks to put right around the edge. And the reason why I do this is because it needs to have some sort of little bit of ventilation here in the top. If I were to set anything right on top of the hole, it would just smother the fire. So the stones are going to help elevate whatever I put on top of them. If this hole was small, I would need very little to span that gap. You could use anything you want. You could use something metal, you could use green limbs even from a tree, again across the top to make your own homemade grate in a survival situation. If you do happen to have a little barbecue grill or some sort of small little grill, obviously you can see that's just about ideal for this, where it spans across the 4 rocks and is suspended above the fire, so it's still getting air down there, and we could make a whole meal on this if we wanted to. But for today, I think I'll just make a good hot cup of tea, and so we'll get the kettle out and a good cup nearby and some water I've brought with me that's already filtered and clean, and this will be boiling in no time. Well, the hard work of the day is done. I'm proud to have a Dakota Fire Hole that's successfully built and a hot cup of tea to enjoy. It's time to settle in for the night. I hope that was just a little bit easier than you expected it to be, and it sounds fancier on the surface than it was in reality. So now that you know how to do it, I hope this week get one of your kids or your aunt or your uncle or somebody on the street to go with you and try to dig one yourself, and you'll recognize just how easy it was. Share this episode though with a friend who might enjoy it with you, and then take the time, you know what I'm gonna say, take the time to go out and find somebody who needs you to be their blessing and bless them this week. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
When I was a lost lamb, the Lord sought my soul. As gentle as a shepherd, He brought me to the fold. A master that made me akin to a king, when I'm not even worthy to beg at His feet. And who do you know that would die in my stead. Who do you know that can rise from the dead? He took hell from my future, gave me heaven forever. Oh, I serve him 'cause I don't know any better. Oh, I serve him 'cause I don't know any better.